thank you for joining us. Apologies, there's some technical difficulties, but we are there now, so apologies for that, and we will run over if we need to answer any questions, and I will make sure we are recording the session as we are now by the look of it. So for anyone who has left and you are now rewatching this back, we will be able to send you a message. Hopefully, can everyone hear me okay? I can just see a message in the chat saying, is the audio working? Can everyone hear me okay? Amazing, thank you very much. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate your interest in becoming a trustee of the British Youth Council. Lovely to see so many of you here this evening. We're joined by a number of current trustees on the board, myself included. So we'll go through a quick presentation and then we'll open the floor up to some questions. If you have any given point, feel free just to pop them in the chat. Myself, so I'm Connor Norton. I am a current trustee of the British Youth Council. I was elected last year via the elected route, and I'm also joined, I can see Tegan and Kieran are with us as well, who are both current trustees of the board, and we're all elected last year, so very much familiar with the processes of being elected via the different routes, and we'll be more than happy to field some questions and speak to you all this evening. But conscious you'll want to know some of the key information, so what I'm going to do is start sharing my screen. I'll go through a quick presentation, and then, as I say, we'll open the floor up. We'll hear from myself, Tegan and Kieran, and then we'll open up to any of your questions as well. So if you do have any throughout, feel free to pop them in the chat, but also feel free to save them until the end, and we will welcome them then as well. So bear with me 1 second. Cool. Hopefully everyone is able to now see my slides, and it looks like you can, which is fantastic. Going to admit some people in the waiting room. Wait for me. Amazing. Well, as I say, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Obviously, the application has been open for a while now. Hopefully this session will give you some more information and context on what you'll need before submitting your application if you've not already done so. So in terms of the session, we'll cover what it is and what a trustee is, what it's like being a BYC trustee, what it's like being BYC chair. Hopefully if Zara can join us, but if not, we'll talk around the general trustee roles and treasurer as well, the roles that are up for election and appointed route. Talk about what makes a great trustee. So a number of us on the board have got trustee experience, both with the BYC, but also of other organisations. So we'll talk about our experiences there. Talk about the election and the recruitment process, some of the key dates that you may not already have. Make sure you've got them in your diary, and then what you'll gain from being involved in the process, what to do if you're unsuccessful, and then a quick Q&A as well to welcome any questions. If you want to stay on the call at the end and ask the questions to myself and my fellow trustees in a more one-to-one basis as well, you are welcome to do so. So what is a trustee then? Trustees have the overall legal responsibility for a charity just like the British Youth Council. Trustees must act collectively to govern the charity and take the important decisions at a strategic and senior level. Together, the trustees are the trustee board. So the trustee board is made up of over 12 trustees of the British Youth Council, all with varying experience, expertise, knowledge and skills that all come together to shape and influence the direction of the British Youth Council for the benefit of our members and young people up and down the UK. We're all committed to the charity's aims and values, and we shape and influence the direction of the charity's strategy as well. What that looks like in terms of some of the essential trustee main duties, as you can see on the screen, that's complying with charity governing documents and law, ensuring your charity is accountable, acting with reasonable care and skill, managing the charity's resources and finances responsibly, acting in the charity's best interest, and ensuring your charity is carrying out its purpose for the public benefit. So all of this, it sounds a lot, it sounds intense, it is really important. Rest assured, you get an extensive training package and you get guidance and support all the way through your time as a trustee if you're successful. So it is something you're supported with at any point if you have questions. There are buddy schemes on the board, so you'll be buddied up with someone who's been on the board for a number of years. They've been there, they've had that experience, they've asked those questions, and you'll have an extensive training period, as well as access to support and resources all the way through your time as a trustee from the Charity Commission and various other sources, to make sure you're supported and able to govern and be a trustee to the best of your ability. What's it like being a BYC trustee then? So everyone on our board, when elected or appointed, is between 16 and 25. So we truly are representative of our membership. We are for young people, by young people. We work with and for young people, as it says there. We support a talented staff team with various projects. So that could be things around the UK Youth Parliament, that could be votes at 16, various different policies and campaigns that we run. The charity itself is recognised nationally and internationally. So, for example, I've got back from Strasbourg in France with the European Youth Council and Youth Foundation, a project for a week where one of the main things people spoke really glowingly about the British Youth Council and about our youth work. And I know Kieran, I believe, was in Belgium recently, and I'm sure he'll talk about that. So there are really international opportunities as well as those on our doorstep. There's several committees that you'd be involved in if successful. There is people, finance and risk. And then there is also our recruitment committee, of which I am the chair of, which is obviously acted upon when we need to recruit. We work with the government as well as other charities to make sure that we're representing young people's voice and acting in their best interests. In terms of what that looks like, I'll now move on to hearing from some of our trustees and how they found their experience so far. And then we'll pause for some questions as well. So what's it like being a trustee? You've heard enough of my voice for now. I'll stop sharing for a moment and I'll welcome any of our trustees who are currently on the board. So we've got Katie, Tegan and Kieran, I believe I can see on my screen, to take the floor and tell us a little bit more about their time on the board so far and any words of wisdom they may want to share with you.
I can go first. I was waiting to see who was going to unmute themselves. So, hi everyone, I'm Tegan. I've been trustee and non-exec director at British Youth Council since end of October last year now. So already approaching 1 year of the 3-year term. I started the same time as Connor and Kieran did, and I applied via the elected route. So around this time last year, I was filling in the online application form, the same as what all of you will be looking at. Had the interview, kind of got shortlisted to the point of being up for election, wrote the speech, like spoke at the hustings and the AGM, all of that. So in terms of my experience as a trustee so far, I mean, I'm having a great time. I love it. I am such a big advocate for BYC. I first heard about BYC because I was on one of the programs. So we used to have a youth forum with the Bank of England, and I applied to be a part of that because financial literacy is something that I'm really passionate about, especially young people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, understanding economics and gaining financial literacy, which at the moment in our school system and curriculum doesn't have a massive focus. So I joined that forum, and through that I sort of become a part of BYC. I got all of the emails and stayed up to date with all the events that were going on. And then they sort of released the recruitment, and I honestly really didn't think I was gonna get it. Like I just saw it in an email saying we're looking for new trustees, who's interested, and I just thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, and the Bank of England forum was coming to an end at the exact same time, so I thought it was sort of like take over that thing that I was already doing because I wanted to stay involved so badly. In terms of a highlight of being a trustee, so you get to get involved with things that are outside of the minimum requirements. So the minimum requirement is to show up to the board meetings, like do the reading, share your opinions on decisions that need to be made, go to your committee meetings for the things that you're responsible and accountable for. So I'm on the finance committee with Connor, and we look at the budget and things. But outside of that, there are lots of exciting opportunities. And actually, something I've been involved in this year was our APPG inquiry into youth employment and skills in the UK. So as you might know, BYC is one of the secretariats for the APPG on youth affairs. We also have a couple of other charities who support different strands of it. And for the inquiry, we are working with YMCA to basically collect a lot of data and evidence to create this report with a bunch of recommendations to government about how they can improve youth employment and skills in the UK, how they can improve careers education, and it touched on various topics. That was a 5 months long piece of work, and but it didn't take up a lot of time within that 5 months. Like there was a few different meetings on Zoom, you know, different emails to keep on top of each week, various things in Parliament. So if that's something you're interested in, you definitely get to go to Parliament a lot with BYC. Our evidence sessions to inform our inquiry findings were held in Parliament. So we had charities all across the UK and MPs from different parties come and provide their evidence, and turned it into a big report. I recommend reading it. I'll send a link in the chat after I stop talking. And we launched that officially a couple of weeks ago now, and I gave a speech in Parliament about it, chaired a session with lots of young people, and those recommendations have been sent directly to government now, and we fully expect to see commitments to careers education in the next manifestos by the time of the next general election. And to actually have contributed to this piece of work and these 7 key recommendations that could one day actually influence government policy is something that's very exciting, and I get very nerdy and happy about. So, and that's just one example. There are so many things you can do if you're involved in BYC. And I will pass over now to Katie.
Thanks, Tegan. Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Katie Burke. I'm one of the current trustees. I've been a trustee of the BYC for the last 2 years, and I'm currently also deputy chair of the Board of Trustees. I came to the BYC trustees through the appointed pathway. So there are 2 routes. You'll probably hear a bit from Connor on this, but there are 2 pathways essentially. You can apply as one, but then there are two separate ways to go in terms of election or appointment. And I was appointed because of my prior experience serving on the board of the Scottish Youth Parliament. I was vice chair and then chair of the Scottish Youth Parliament back in 2015-16, and have been heavily involved in youth voice and youth democracy since I was a young teenager, since about 2013. So it's been a big part of my life. I'm now aging out, believe it or not. I'm hitting the end of what it means to be a young person. And so have 1 more year on the Board of Trustees, but have loved every single minute of kind of giving back to youth voice in a way it gave me so much. Growing up as a young person, I was both an MSYP and an MYP and was involved in international work too, and really wanted to give back my experience to the BYC. In my day job, I'm a researcher. I live in London now, but I'm from Scotland. I'm from kind of a rural community in the west coast of Scotland. And so, yeah, really wanted to give back and make sure I could help build up the British Youth Council and all the great work it does. Some highlights of the past 2 years. We are currently partnering with the Body Shop to reignite the campaign to lower the voting age to 16. I was actually having some really exciting conversations about that today in government, because the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has for the first time this summer recommended the government consider the lowering of the voting age in England and Northern Ireland also, which is just really exciting to see that things like UN committees are getting on board with the lowering of the voting age too. But in the UK, we've been doing a lot of work with our Votes at 16 Youth Action Group through the British Youth Council to kind of reinforce those messages, particularly with a general election on the horizon. I think it's a really exciting time to be involved in the Votes at 16 campaign that's been going on for decades. I was heavily involved in the campaign in Scotland when we managed to lower the voting age for the independence referendum in 2014, and then for all Scottish elections in 2015. And it's just been really exciting. So that's probably a highlight for me, is getting back involved with that work. Even this week, I was giving an interview to a researcher from LSE about Votes at 16 and youth voice and youth movements and how they kind of have contributed to politics in this country. And I just think it's really exciting that we're making history, young people are making history, and as trustees, we get to be a part of that. But also part of our role is kind of the day-to-day functioning of quite a small charity with a really large impact. And so it's a lot about spending time really scrutinizing policies and procedures. It's about supporting Joe, our CEO. It's about making sure kind of our committees and our day-to-day processes are functioning well. And so if you're really into kind of procedure and administration and that kind of side of strategic thinking and making sure kind of an organization is running smoothly, I would really encourage you to consider joining our trustee board. There are lots of exciting opportunities and things that we do, but the bread and butter, the day-to-day, is that kind of procedural stuff, as Tegan was mentioning. And that's where we really need good eyes and ears, good people that are really connected to our membership and to young people. Outside of this work, I'm also a member of Girl Guiding and really active in that organisation. And so we need people from member organisations, people that are really tuned into local young people, to bring that to our board as well. So yeah, would really encourage you to get involved no matter who you are or where you're from, what background you are. My kind of parting words, I was chairing this committee last year and I said that absolutely nothing should feel like it disqualifies you from applying. Please do not have imposter syndrome when it comes to this. We all did when we arrived and we thought we don't deserve to be here, but every single person deserves to put in an application. We really want to hear from as many young people as possible, from as many different backgrounds as possible, and we're here to support you as you join the trustee board, hopefully. So do not let it put you off. Ask us all the questions you need to. We'll leave our emails as well in the chat or other ways of getting in touch with us. Feel free to reach out. We're really friendly, I promise, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'll take over from Casey without wanting to kind of just, oh, my name's Kieran, by the way, I should have said that at the start, shouldn't I? Without wanting to just kind of repeat what everyone else just said. I was appointed last October. Kind of because the skills that I've got kind of fit the gap that they were looking for. So kind of more around diversity and that kind of thing, which is really nice to kind of be recognised in that way. I had no idea what BYC was, never heard of it, never did a programme. I was actually looking for trustee opportunities, not realising actually at 25 years old, it's quite rare to have a trusteeship. So when I came across BYC's website, I thought this is great. The work they did was something really exciting, kind of really fitted in with my ethos. I've always worked with young people and in that field. So I've always kind of had my ear to the ground in that sense, but never at the strategic level. And as Katie and as Tegan was saying, you get to really kind of dissect and scrutinise some of that more kind of legal, less operational aspects. So I love kind of when we have to look at different policies. I sit on the people committee, so that's a lot of kind of HR kind of things, you know, for me, making things as fair for the staff as possible, make sure they've got the best packages, that kind of thing is really interesting to me. And again, there's other opportunities as well outside of just the day-to-day meetings and that kind of thing. So I think 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Belgium at the European Youth Academy, which was absolutely fantastic, you know, just kind of meeting all the other member organizations of the EYF. And kind of just sharing skills and that kind of thing to bring back to the board was really, really insightful. So kind of, I'll just repeat what Kate says, that everyone should apply, you know, don't let, it's easy to think, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, that kind of thing. Like, it's rubbish. Apply, you know, as long as you've got the interest and you've got the passion, we want to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Kieran, Katie and Tegan. I think can't say any more than's been said so eloquently and brilliantly there. But as Katie said, please do apply if you have any questions and you want to speak to any of us particularly. Obviously, all of us have talked and we'll talk about different areas. So if you feel actually you want to ask Tegan a question specifically privately, do feel free to drop Tegan an email. Equally, Katie, Kieran and myself, we'll all pop our emails in the chat and we're always more than happy to have a conversation, chat to you, even if it's not around applying and you just want some advice and some guidance around the projects you're working in, being involved in the BYC more broadly. We're always more than happy to help. Really quickly for myself, so similar to Kieran, I was elected, but I wasn't overly familiar with the BYC. I knew about it, but I hadn't been involved. I had been president of a student union for 2 years, so I'd been involved in trusteeship that way. Was really passionate about young people, helping young people of today, of tomorrow, having the best opportunities with education, with access to good social mobility, everything that comes with that, everything that comes with the BYC's values and mission. Saw the opportunity, really spoke to me. I came to this session this time last year, heard from people just like Katie. I really took heed from the advice of believe in yourself, put your name in the hat. What's the worst that can happen? Trust me when I say it's a hugely supportive process. Even if you are not successful, we're here to support you. There's other ways to get involved, and other opportunities beyond the BYC that you can get involved in, that particularly for some of you, if you're comfortably under 25, unlike myself, when I applied, the clock was ticking, but if you're comfortably under 25, the opportunities will come again. So you are able to apply at another point. That's not a problem. And if not, there's loads of other resources we'll share throughout the process. So on that note, hold any questions you've got. If you have got some, obviously do feel free to pop them in the chat or hold on to them. What we will do is we'll whiz through the last few slides around some of the actual process, and then we'll spend a good chunk, 20 minutes or so, but we'll take some questions, we'll open the floor up, and you can hear once again from our amazing trustees. So I'll start sharing my screen again, and then we'll get straight back to it. Cool. So the route to becoming a BYC trustee. So Katie obviously alluded to this, but we have two different routes. So we're looking for one treasurer, 2 elected trustees, and 2 appointed trustees this year. How that will work, that will split. So there will be 2 elected and then 2 appointed, and the treasurer will also be an elected role at our ACM as well in September. So how that will work, you'll all be interviewed. Those who we deem that meet the skills gaps we have on our board, and I'll come on to that in a moment, will be appointed, and then everyone else will be put forward into the elected route. Within that, you will be put forward to our ACM, which will be digital this year, so it'll be online. You will speak briefly to our membership. You will put your case forward as to why you want to stand. Again, don't be intimidated by this. They're a really friendly, welcoming bunch. You're invited to join for the whole day. So if you want to, and you want to find out some of the policy breakout discussions, hear from some of our amazing young people, you'll have that opportunity. And essentially, you just get a moment or two to talk around what it is you can bring, why you're passionate, and why you care. You'll be given some guidance and support on that closer to the time. So you have some support on what that may look like in terms of how you want to say it and how you present it. But really, the onus is on you, and it's up to you to deliver it in the way that most feels comfortable to you and you feel passionate delivering as well. In terms of the appointed route, the trustees will be appointed on a skills gap basis. So I'll go on to that in a moment, and what that will look like. So we're particularly looking for young people who have a strategic overlook as we look to grow our membership and impact. We're particularly seeking individuals with voluntary professional experience in finance, funding, and people in HR. So these are some of the key areas we've identified from an audit of our current board demographics. What I would stress, we're not just looking for these areas. So if you feel, okay, you're really strong on EDI, you're really strong on marketing, they are still valuable. It does not discount you. Obviously, you'll be applying, and we will then split off from the appointed and the elected route. So stress these areas. Yes, definitely the finance, the funding, the people in HR are really, really important. But if you feel you're really strong in youth work, in marketing, in comms, whatever it may be, sing and play to your strengths, show that, demonstrate that. In terms of the application process, it can be written, or you can provide an audio file or video. For example, last year I used video. So I spoke to camera like this. I had the questions on a PowerPoint slide. That worked really well for me. I really like being able to verbalize and show visually kind of my interest and my passion with the topic. If your preferred style is written, you're more than happy and more than able to use a Word document and put your application together like that as well. There's some more detail on the application packs. I've linked them on the chat, which will have detail on these board skill gaps. So you can look at those, you can consider. And I'd recommend having a look at our wider BYC materials to see how your understanding and knowledge can potentially fit these areas. Really try and map yourself to the specification and try and incorporate this into your answers, whether that be audio, visual, or in written formats as well. In terms of the election recruitment process, so the application is used to help us get to know your skills, your experiences as a potential trustee. The interview will be used to get to know you further and assess how suitable you are for the role. Don't be alarmed by the interview sense. It will be very much a welcoming environment. We want to get to know you. It's for you to get to know us more, and it's for us to get to know you. It won't be kind of an apprentice style back and forth. We're there to get to know you, to find out more about your passion, and hopefully guide you towards being an amazing trustee. ACM will be an opportunity for the memberships to hear from you on why you think you should be elected and vote for their top candidate. So we have a number of membership organisations. They'll all be there. They're all allocated votes based on their membership numbers, and they will be there to make sure that they have a say in who represents us. So it's really fair, really democratic. Always worth making sure that when you come along, you consider that, you have a look at our membership base, make sure you look at some of our manifesto points, our policy positions. When you're talking to our membership, if you go down the elected route, think about how you may want to consider that and when you speak, to make sure you're really on kind of message to the BYC, but also putting your own stamp and your own passion across as well to the membership. In terms of some of the key dates, and this is all outlined in both of the application packs for trustee and for treasurer. The deadline, the all-important deadline, is midnight on Sunday, the 6th of August. So make sure you don't leave it to the last minute, particularly if you are trying audio or video format. Just make sure that you've tried it. If you're using WeTransfer, whatever format you use, that's fine. But give yourself enough time that iMovie, Adobe exports, it all works, it plays back okay. Just make sure that all of those knots are checked through and it's all okay. Week commencing the 14th of August, you'll be informed whether you've been put forward to interview. And then week commencing the 16th to the 26th of August, you'll have an interview with some of our lovely trustees. So it could be Kieran, Katie, Tegan, or myself, or it could be our wider board. So that could be newer trustees like myself, Tegan, and Kieran, or it could be our outgoing trustees. They're all super friendly. They've all got amazing lived experience of their engagement with young people and youth work. So really make sure when you have those interviews, come prepared with some questions, get some value out of it. Make sure you utilize the knowledge and the expertise of those who are interviewing you. They're really friendly and good connections to have. Whether you're successful or unsuccessful, they're really, really useful to have. Week commencing the 28th of August, candidates will be informed if they've been successful by the appointed route or offered the elected route. So we'll make sure we communicate that to you clearly. At that point, if you are offered the elected route, we'll make sure you have all of the details around candidate statements, around invites to ACM, and all of the relevant details that come with that. We'll make sure you have that ready. What I would say is for everyone on the call right now, I'd highly recommend you keep the ACM date in your diary free. So it will take place in the daytime. So if you have, I believe it's 10 till 4 p.m, you won't likely be needed for that whole day. If you want to stay for the whole day, you're more than welcome to. It's something I did when I was elected, but just make sure you have the morning until the afternoon free. You'll be expected to speak to the membership, engage in some activities to keep that date free. Obviously, if you're elected via the appointed route, brilliant, you're not going to need that date, but you may still want to come along, and I'd highly recommend you do, just to get a feel for the BYC and what we do, even if you've been involved before. And then obviously just going back a little bit, the 5th of September will be the deadline for candidate statements. So that will be kind of no more than 250 to 500 words, where you put across essentially your commitment. So not quite a manifesto, but an introduction to who you are, what you believe in, why you've put yourself forward, and what you feel you can bring to the board. So it could be your expertise on finance, it could be your passion for young people, or your passion for a certain cause. It could be tied to something around the fact that the general election coming up and you feel now is the time that you can help support the BYC in delivering its message around certain policy positions. It's completely up to you. But as we said, we're here to support you. If you do have any queries or questions beyond this call, do feel free to ask. What will you gain from being involved in the process then? So obviously experience of applying and being interviewed in a rigorous process. This is, we appreciate and we understand, quite a grueling process at times. There are a number of stages. At every stage though, we want it to be welcoming and supportive, but it is really, really useful for when you may go on to apply for other jobs, whether that be voluntary or paid. You learn a lot more about the charity sector. You learn more about membership organisations, which are really useful, particularly if you want to apply for other boards. So it may be, even if you are successful, that when your tenure is up, you want to join another board. And actually, there's some really alarming statistics about the lack of young people on boards, even under the age of 30 or even 30 to 40. So there are still opportunities there for you to have your voice heard beyond being with the BYC. You develop new skills, whether that be around your ability to write applications, to present, to conduct yourself in interviews, to research organisations. You'll develop a whole range of skills that will be useful both for the BYC application, but your wider application in your career and your personal life. You'll also widen your network, so you'll get to engage with some fantastic people across the UK who do amazing work with young people in education, in NGOs, in the civil service. Really, really value that opportunity to build that network and build those connections. If you're unsuccessful, what can you do? So one of the key links we'd recommend is the Young Trustees movement. This was founded out of the fact that there are just so few young people on trustee boards. The vast majority of young people who are on trustee boards are student union officers from SUs across the UK. That disproportionately skews the figures somewhat. Actually, when you take that out, it's a ridiculously small amount of young people who are on trustee boards. The Young Trustees movement has been created to help remedy that. So it provides clear opportunities where boards are willing and open to looking at young people, irrespective of your experience level. They make it really clear if they expect a certain level of knowledge and expertise, or actually if they're welcome to developing and helping you grow that, even from kind of early beginnings. So that brings to a close the more formal questions. Really keen on to make sure we've got kind of 20 minutes, but happy to stay on the call longer if people have further questions. I'll stop sharing my screen. If you do have any questions, what I would ask is, if you're happy to say them verbally, if you could just raise hands, just so we can make sure we go in an orderly manner. And obviously, if you want to put some in the chat as well, please let us know. But Mia, I'll go to you first. I can see your hands raised.
Thank you, Connor. I'd like to say thank you for letting me be on this call, and thank you for talking to us. I've put some of my questions in the chat, but the ones I want to ask are these questions. So if you already have a role within the British Youth Council, but you want to become a trustee, do you need to give up your role before you apply, or is it when you get your role, then you give up the previous one?
So, Katie, you may be best to speak to this, but you would be fine as long as it wasn't a paid staff role. We wouldn't want to discourage anyone from engaging if, for example, you were involved as a young MP, if you're involved with a youth organisation or Bank of England. We wouldn't want to discourage you from still continuing that work. So there would be no problem with you applying and being a trustee and doing both. Often it's actually really useful because you'll have that context, you'll have that understanding of a particular organisation. And then the second question around wise to apply again if you feel you haven't highlighted your best skill, that wouldn't be a problem. If you just make a note when you apply, if you kind of put in the header, this is kind of final updated version, and just explain that, that's not a problem. When we look through, we can disregard the original application and take into account the newer one with any relevant changes you may have made.
Thank you so much.
Just to jump in there, Mia, I would check directly with the person who is running your program at BYC on the exact requirements of your programs. I know some programs do not allow, I know what you're speaking to precisely, and it's some programs that don't allow you to be both a trustee and on that program. So I would just email whoever it is you have a contact with, whether that's through your youth worker or that is a member of BYC staff, just to check directly about your specific circumstances. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie. Chiadi, I will come to you in a moment because I can see you've asked how to raise hand, but I'll go to Hamdan. Hopefully, Hamdan, I've pronounced that correctly, but please let me know if I haven't. And then I'll go to Chiadi and then Tiffany.
Oh yeah, that's good pronouncement. Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, do you have to be previously on another board in order to apply to this one?
No, you don't have to. That's the best thing about it. So we would actively welcome, if you've never been involved in governance, in trusteeship, if anything, that's a plus. That's brilliant. You come with a unique perspective. When maybe someone like myself who's been on a board before, your kind of view and the way in which you see things is different. It's unique, and that's really, really valued. We actively want people that haven't been involved in boards before. Even if you have, that it doesn't disadvantage you, but there is no advantage given to those who've been involved in boards before. It's purely based on the merit of your application and what you put forward that you can bring to the board.
Yeah, and one more thing.
Yep.
Is there a way I could get the PowerPoint that you just showed?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I can make sure. So when we share the recording, I'll get one of our admin team who will have all of your details from the sign up form to ping across the PowerPoint as well for everyone. So you've got that for reference as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Chiadi, yourself, and then I'll go through the hands.
Yeah, hello, my name's Chadi. I was just wondering, Katie was talking about experience and like she's done a lot of stuff before. So obviously I'm 17 out. Like my biggest qualifications I have is GCSEs. Do you think that's going to put me at a disadvantage?
No, not at all. And I'll welcome any of the other kind of trustees to come in and talk about this point if they wish, but not at all. And this is one of the things we talked about extensively as a recruitment committee, that we want to make sure that if you're 16, 17, obviously your lived experience will be different to a 24, 25-year-old who maybe they've been to university, they've been working for a number of years, whatever it may be. What we would ask is whatever examples you give, they're relevant to you. So if, for example, your financial experience is managing your own budget from a part-time job, that's still really brilliant. That's still really useful. And that's something we would value. If your communication skills is being the captain of your football team, your rugby team, that's still really valuable and really useful. As long as you can evidence that and the impact you had at a local level, that's just as valuable to us when we're looking at the application as someone who has line managed a group of people, because we take into consideration, given on age, where there may be discrepancies in terms of what a 16 or 17-year-old may have been able to achieve with financial management, communication, compared to a 25-year-old who has worked in a student union where they have access to a high financial budget. So it wouldn't disadvantage you. What we'd always say is just use the best examples you have. And as long as you articulate them as best as you can, we will take that into consideration and make sure that you're given a fair and equitable chance.
Thank you.
No problem. Amazing. I believe it was Tiffany next.
Hi. I was just kind of, back onto the point about skills gaps.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was only sort of from the financial aspect, but like, are there other skill gaps, for example, kind of technologically? Is that a place that could be improved upon?
Yes, it's again, it's an area that we haven't necessarily picked up in our kind of board and skills audit, but it's not to say that there isn't areas we couldn't improve. And obviously, like any audit, and particularly a skills audit, there will be areas that aren't always picked up. It's based on what people provide us. So what our current trustees, myself, Tegan, Katie, Kieran, when we fill out the form, it's what we put in terms of where we feel we're strong, where we feel we're maybe lacking in knowledge and expertise. So it can often be that we just not mention that. I think there's always room to grow. I think it's an area in the organisation where we would welcome insight and expertise in terms of how we develop our digital systems, our efficiency of communication, how we manage data, all of the things that may come with technology. But I will put, as Katie's asked there, the skills gap slide again. But yeah, beyond financial, there is also fundraising, people and HR.
And with like people in HR, I'm also 17, so I was just curious, like, on what kind of level does that experience have to be relevant?
Yeah,
for like people in HR specifically.
Yeah, so again, it can be as good an experience as you've got. So with people, for example, it could be if you work a part-time job, if you're on a sports team, if you're on a debating team, you're a member of a school club, whatever it may be, how you manage conflict. So you may have had an example where at your part-time job, you've had to deal with difficult customers, a difficult colleague. It may be at school, you've been kind of a head of year, a prefect, wherever it may be, and you've had to deal with a difficult situation. It could be how someone's communicated, but anything around there that kind of links to that human resource, that people skills, that can be valid examples. In terms of finance, again, I mentioned, but if you have an income or you're given some money from a family member for food shopping, for paying bills, anything like that, you can demonstrate where you budget, you use finances, is really, really welcome. All we ever ask is use what you feel is your best example, and we take that into account relevant to kind of your age and experience. But I can see Tegan's got her hand raised, so I'll jump over to Tegan, who I'm sure is going to expand with some more wisdom.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, I was just going to add on to what you were saying. Obviously, I don't know the full context of your experiences and what you do at the moment, but when I was your age, if I was applying and it was something about people/HR skills, honestly, I would probably just talk about sort of dealing with my younger siblings and making sure that I treat them fairly, or like dealing with a conflict, like if there are arguments in the house, or even between friends. Like it's all just about the skill, and whether you're doing that like in the school playground with helping resolve some sort of issue, or in your house dealing with family members, it's the same basic skill as if you were in an office and you're dealing with a conflict. What we're looking for is your sort of motivation behind things, your drive, like what you would think to do in those situations, even if you haven't been in them yet. So it's all about your potential rather than showing that you've already done all of the things under the sun that could be relevant to being a trustee. So hopefully that is reassuring. That's what I would have said if I was applying when I was 17, was sort of relate it to dealing with like the people around me in my life and how I treat people in that sense.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Tegan. Katie?
Yeah, just thinking of some other ideas off the top of my head. So if you were in a school committee, that kind of thing, if you're on prom committee, if you're on yearbook, if you designed the leavers hoodies, all of those are great examples of finance, managing a budget and whatever you were involved in there, and fundraising potentially if you, for example, fundraised for a school trip, for going away on a guide and scout camp. Those kind of things could be really good experience. If you're in a youth council, how you manage your youth council budget as well is really vital, really important. Think about things like that, and just any other relevant experience you have. I will say that if you don't have specific expertise in one of these areas, you can still apply. It's not excluding, it's saying we're particularly looking for these things, but we're not excluding people that don't have these experiences too. So come as you are, basically, and we will accept your application and review it thoroughly. So yeah, let us know who you are, let your personality shine through, let your experience shine through, and we'll assess each application on a case-by-case basis.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Katie, and to Tegan as well. And I think just for reassurance, for those of you who may be in that kind of 16, 17, 18-year-old bracket, we do currently have members of our board who fit that age range. We've had many members previously. So there are people who have been in that similar position to you now, who are 17, 18, they're maybe kind of sixth form, university, at the start of their university experience, or sixth form. They are on our board, they have been on our board, so the people are selected, they do have those opportunities. They've been in a similar position to you where they've maybe had that question of how do I evidence this? And like Katie said, they've let their personality shine through. They've really talked about the issues that are relevant to them, whether, as Tegan said, it's family members and siblings, or it's your involvement on a school or a sports team, anything like that you're passionate about and you can speak with conviction on. Use it, shout about it, and be proud of it. Amazing. So I think, Max, you are next.
Hi, thank you for all of that. That definitely partially already answers my question, but I think Tegan mentioned about exhibiting your potential as well as your historical experience. So I've actually messaged you before, Connor, but so I'm about to start my year as sabbatical officer, which will obviously give me a certain amount of trustee experience, but of which I don't currently have. But yeah, it's a 3-year trustee position. So in a year's time, obviously I have a lot more experience going into it than I do now. Is that something I can still talk about?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I don't know if I messaged you, but congratulations again on
thank
the
you.
role. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Always love it. Anyone who's been involved in LSU. But yeah, it's something you can talk about. I think being mindful of not projecting too far into the future. So I think obviously you could talk about things 2-3 years into that tenure. Try and focus on the immediate. So some of the skills you plan to develop. If there's any areas you really feel that you're going to try and enact change on. So if you're student union, you feel like, okay, one of the first things I'm going to get on the board, one of the reasons I'm in this position is because I made a commitment that I'm going to enhance the financial management, or I'm going to enhance our ability to campaign on issue X, Y, and Z. Those sort of things I think are brilliant. So just make sure there's a good balance. Yes, have some of it in there, but I would focus on almost an 80, 20, 70, 30 of 70 or 80% on the now, what you've done, what you're doing, and then 20 to 30 on maybe where you see potential future aims and objectives, and just be clear in how you're kind of signposting to that in your application, so we know when it's something you've done and it's something where you're talking about the potential you see and how you're going to move into that world.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers.
No problem. I believe we have Clara next. And then Jury, and then Taliban. And apologies to anyone with pronunciations. If you're happy to say your name as well, make sure I make a note for future. But Clara, you're first.
Hi, so my question was, how do you go about selecting endeavours, for example, the Voting at 16 campaigns, and how often do you venture into new endeavours?
Yep, so I'm sure Katie will want to talk about this, but one of the things, and you'd see it firsthand, is ACM. So this is a big opportunity where lots of this is discussed. There's areas like the UK Youth Parliament as well, where some of these points are discussed as well. But as Katie is being deeply involved in this, both as a young person, as a trustee, and now as kind of a deputy chair, be brilliant to hear Katie's insight on this. So Katie, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, so thanks for your question. BYC basically creates policies on the issues that young people care about. So young people who are in our membership organizations. So that's everything from local youth councils in certain council areas are members of the British Youth Council, because we're the National Youth Council of the UK. We're kind of the umbrella organization, but also larger organizations like Girl Guiding, Scouts, the National Union of Students, NUS. People like that can submit policy motions to our ACM, which is held in September, which is where the elections will also take place for those going down the elective pathway. And that's really where we have policy discussions in the BYC and are able to vote and create kind of national policy agenda for the British Youth Council. Is all searchable on our website, all of our kind of policy issues. We are non-party political, but that doesn't mean to say we don't speak on political issues that affect young people. So we have particular policy positions. I know, for example, last year, the Board of Trustees brought some amendments to current policy looking at the cost of living crisis and the impact that that had on young people. So that was a really big priority for us last year. And something we wanted to ask our members, is this a priority for you too? And we brought it to ACM so our members could vote on it. But then also within our programs, young people bring issues to us. So for example, through the UK Youth Parliament programme, we have this national survey that we conduct every couple of years called Make Your Mark, which is the largest survey of young people across the UK. And we hand them out in schools, colleges, youth groups across the country through our wonderful partners. And we basically ask young people, what are the issues you care about? And those feed back into a process. We collate them all together, and that goes to the UK Youth Parliament's annual sitting, which is held in November, where our members of the UK Youth Parliament discuss the issues in the House of Commons. It's on BBC, actually. You can watch it live. And then people, our members of the Youth Parliament, vote on behalf of their constituents in local areas all across the UK from each of the 4 nations on issues that matter to their constituents. And they pick one reserve policy area, so one UK-wide policy that they want to campaign on, and then one devolved policy, so one that matters that's kind of England only. And so they will use that as a campaigning platform. So Votes to 16 has continuously been part of BYC policy since, I think, about the 90s. I could be wrong on that. Do check me. But then also it has been a key campaigning and priority for the UK Youth Parliament for many, many years now. I'm 26, believe it or not. And when I was, 14, 15, 16, and a member of the UK Youth Parliament, consistently it would come up as kind of the key issue for young people. So that's kind of how we pick priorities in terms of how we set our policy agenda and then our campaigns as well.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Katie. Jory, did you want to jump in next?
Yeah, hi. Okay, so I'm going to start my A-levels in September, and I was just wondering, if I was going to be a trustee, how much time would I have to dedicate a week towards it?
So I think week by week, it'd be hard to quantify. I think it really varies. I think in terms of the core governance structure, for context, we meet around five or six times a year for our main board. That is kind of normally, so all of the meetings, whether it be committees or board meetings, always take place virtually, apart from a handover weekend, and which is normally October, November time. The subcommittees will take place on weekday evenings, so they're normally around an hour to 90 minutes. And then our board meetings are normally Saturdays around 10 a.m. till 3 to 5 p.m, depending on how much content we have. So it varies in terms of other opportunities. So Kieran mentioned being kind of away recently with the BYC. I've just spent 5 days in France with the BYC. They were optional opportunities. There was no expectation I went to them, but I wanted to. I wanted to get involved. I put my name forward. My costs were covered in terms of transport and accommodation. And then things like Tegan's been involved with. So some of the kind of parliamentary policy work, that can be kind of an hour or two in an evening where you go to an APPG, or it could be something like the UK Youth Parliament, which is a full day event. So it'd be 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. It really depends on how much you want to get involved. Obviously, what we'd always say is we want you to get involved with as much as possible. However, we appreciate that if you're doing your A-levels, if you have exams for A-levels, university, your job commitments, there is a complete understanding that that comes first. That is a priority. So if you're clear with us and you let us know about that, we will be welcoming and saying, okay, you're more than welcome to take a step back from May till June while your exams are underway. And then maybe you would just give some more of your time in November, December. But there is real flexibility there. It's just kind of on an understanding basis that you'll be flexible with that, and we'll be flexible with you as well.
Thank you. Also, if you don't mind me asking, what did you do in France?
So I was in Strasbourg. So I was with the European Youth Council and the European Youth Foundation. So under the kind of European Union umbrella, but separate, obviously, hence Brexit, which is a shame, but personal view. But I was there with over 30 young people from different youth organisations. So they were from charities around addiction, youth voice, homelessness, education, free school meals, various different things across a real variety of European countries. We were there on how to develop pilot activities, so how to develop youth work projects and activities that are meaningful. So it was around project management. It was around building and fostering positive relationships and connections. So really a lot of us had maybe not been in those spaces before. So how we could build cross collaboration with our institutions and with our organizations. Really, really valuable, really, really useful in terms of champion the BYC's work, letting them know that we're open. We want to collaborate with our European partners, European young people, and likewise they want to speak to us. They want to hear our views as well. So really, really good opportunity. Got to see some of the sites, got to do some sightseeing and all that fun stuff, but also getting to spend some time networking and building community with other young people was absolutely fantastic. Hopefully it will help the BYC in terms of our work and our reputation. But then personally for me as well, really enriching, built some really positive relationships, both for the BYC and myself, and a fantastic opportunity.
That's so cool. Thank you so much.
No problem. Conscious of time, I'm happy to stay on, and obviously conscious we start a little bit later. So if people are happy to send and you've still got questions, please feel free to do so. We will only be doing questions now, so that there's no kind of final information to come. So if you do want to depart and you don't have any more questions, feel free to do so. The full recording will be shared with people. If you do still have questions or you want to hear the answers to questions, you're of course more than welcome to stay on. So on that note, I believe it's Kaloyan, and again, apologies if I mispronounced, but I'll hand over to you for your question.
Perfect, thank you. Firstly, just saying thank you to the BYC and everyone else here for organising this. It's very, very nice of you, and I've definitely got a lot out of it. What I really wanted to ask was more so if you could elaborate on the people and HR skills. I understand that you are looking for people with a wide sort of background, experience, that kind of thing, but I suppose, are there any particular skills that you are in need of? Is that in terms of communication? Is it legal experience? Just hit me with everything, really.
Yeah, so I think I'll kind of speak first, and if any of the other trustees have anything they want to speak on from their own experience, I think particularly around that legal understanding, I think would be useful. I think someone who knows kind of what to look for, who can help bring the knowledge of the rest of the board up, would be useful in terms when we are looking at charity governance documentation and legal requirements. Of course, the sole responsibility does not lie just on you. You wouldn't come in as a legal expert and we would go, okay, well, you said this and that's the gospel, that's the only information. I think particularly on the HR as well and the people, we're looking at ways, and I think Kieran alluded to this, to how do we make our organisation a great place to work? So as trustees, we do a lot of great things. We lead a lot of strategic initiatives, but our staff team live and breathe it 9 till 5 or kind of later than that, and weekends, day in, day out. So how do we make sure we develop a good people environment where our staff are rewarded, both in financial terms, but also in terms of annual leave, in terms of work benefits, work-life balance, all of the sort of things we may not even think about. So yes, we're a charity. We can't necessarily compete financially with certain private sector and other things, but what can we do to make ourselves a really values-driven organisation? How can we make it a great place to work? How can we provide innovative solutions to those sort of problems? So that's what we'd maybe expect someone, if they can provide insight on that, they can provide expertise from what they've seen elsewhere, from other organisations, that can be really useful. I think they're two of the main ones. For me, as I say, that there's not necessarily one kind of golden point that stands out as we're explicitly looking for this area. but I'll open up if kind of Kieran, Tegan or Katie, there's any you want to allude to. No, so I think they're the main ones. Obviously,
Perfect.
if there is any way you've got expertise and there's certain areas where you're thinking in your own mind, okay, actually I have got a real edge here and I have got an understanding, shout about it, kind of be proud of it, let us know. It could be something we've not even thought of. We welcome that. We welcome anything where you may feel there's some critique and obviously doing it in the right way, but you feel actually, okay, the BYC are lacking in our understanding of area X or Y. If you think you can provide solutions to that, tell us, let us know. We really welcome that and it will be taken in a constructive manner. Okay,
thank you very much.
No problem. Cool. In terms of the hands raised, I'm not sure if there are any legacy hands. So I'm going to go to Mia first, if that is a fresh hand, and then I'll go to Clara and then Max.
Hi, Connor. So I just wanted to ask, as a BOIC trustee, are there opportunities where you might have to speak on behalf of the BOIC? For example, you've mentioned going to France. Would you need to prepare yourself for that?
Yes, so there will be opportunities where you would speak on behalf of the BYC, and what we'll have, so when we have our board handover, you'll put your name down for explicit speaking opportunities. So for example, I believe, and Kieran, correct me if I'm wrong, you spoke a while ago on, I can't remember what there was a policy, but we're often asked where there may be an issue around education, it may be around gender, it could be around votes at 16, but we will put down potentially, and the comms team will keep track of where we may have expertise. So for example, if it was around, well, maybe not the civil service, given Tegan's role in being impartial, but if it was around education and higher education, they may ask myself or Asara, who are on the board, we work in higher education, that's our area of expertise. And then in more informal events, so when you go to an APPG, when you go to France, for example, when you go to an event, you would be expected, you're speaking on behalf of the BYC, so you would be expected to be politically neutral in your comments, and you would be expected to represent us as you would in a professional job, in a proper manner, in how you present yourself. Of course, don't lose yourself. We wouldn't expect you to dress in a suit and be corporate and be someone you're not. It's not in that sense. It's just making sure you're mindful of the views you put across and distinguishing between your personal view and the view of the BYC. There's support available for that. So in terms of Ramel and our comms team, or Joe, if, for example, you're a member of a political party, that can be fine. You just have to disclose it and declare it. And it may just mean that with certain areas, you would have to step back and not provide comment or opinion. Kieran, I'll hand over to you.
Yes, kind of just to further elaborate on that, it's kind of, I think it's probably quite pertinent to mention that you're never expected to speak on behalf of BYC. It's kind of always if you want to. So I spoke to the BBC about the cost of living and its impact on young people, I think maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I think it was for an online article, because I work with young people who are seeing the effects of the cost of living. So it's kind of where the skills fit with it. But for that, it was kind of emailed to everybody. And then I had a chat with Izzy, one of our staff members, and we kind of spoke about what they were looking to find, and kind of look for that kind of experience I'd wanted to get across. So you're never just left in the dark. You're always kind of, if you do sign up for a speaking opportunity, you're always giving normally a brief, or the opportunity to ask any questions to the staff members who have organised it.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Kieran. Clara, did you want to jump in next?
Yes. So I had 2 questions. So the first one flips a question that was previously asked, and that is, once you're a trustee, are you still free to apply for any other BYC roles, or are there restrictions? And I guess I'll wait for you guys to answer that before I start my second one.
Katie, did you want to take this one? Obviously, I know you mentioned earlier around kind of certain limitations.
Yeah, this is not something that I have the exact answer to, Clara. So if you wouldn't mind writing to us and we can get you the formal answer, that would be great. But generally, no, BYC trustees tend to try and be that strategic and impartial level, slightly above the day-to-day work of the organization. And that's that separation. So generally, no, BYC trustees are not also a member of BYC programs. There tends to be that level of separation.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then my second one was, are there any unique doors that the role can open, i.e. opportunities arise only from you being a trustee?
I would say yes, there's a lot of great spaces you get to go in. I think one that comes to mind, obviously I mentioned France, but Tegan and I were at the UK Youth Parliament back in November last year. I think getting access to that sort of space, being in the chamber, sitting on kind of the green benches, hearing our young people speak, being in the same space as kind of the Speaker of the House, meeting those sort of people, you engage with politicians, you engage with policymakers at really senior levels of government. There are opportunities you don't otherwise get, which I think is fantastic. But I'll let Tegan pop in there. I can see it's heading off in a moment. So Tegan, I'll hand over to you and then I'll let you head off.
Thank you. I just wanted to add in a couple more examples to bring this to life a bit. So Connor, Katie and I actually have all been involved in the National Youth Sector Advisory Board, which is something that BYC holds a place on. It consists of various youth organisations across the UK, where we directly feed into DCMS, which is the Department for Media, Culture and Sport, who own youth policy and youth strategy. So I've been to a couple of those meetings. Also at the moment, I'm part of an organising committee for International Youth Day 2023, which is part of the I Will movement. You can go away and Google it, but it's sort of like a national lottery funded thing, bringing together youth organisations. Over Christmas time, I was invited to various sort of like networking events near Westminster representing BYC, for example, to an event with Joseph Rowntree Foundation, who used to be a funder, and being in that room sort of with other charities who are interested in democratic engagement specifically and the work that they're doing, and just talking to them about BYC and hearing their ideas, thinking of ways to potentially collaborate in the future, things like that. All of those opportunities only came to my email because I'm a BYC trustee. Like I wouldn't be doing that otherwise, because these people have access to BYC. They don't have access to us as individuals. So those opportunities are just filtered down through the name and the branding of BYC. Because as sort of Katie was saying earlier, when you're at an event like this, you are a representative of the organisation. You're not just there in your individual capacity. So it really opens up a lot of doors to you. And I think we've all been able to do some really interesting things.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much, Tegan. And Max.
Hiya, me again. This is more of just a short question, but as trustees, you're legally responsible for the charity. Is trustee liability insurance included, or is it advised we take out trustee liability insurance?
That is a good question. And Katie, I'm hoping you may know the answer. My understanding, yes, we are covered. We would not expect you to take out any insurance of your own accord or your own pocket. There is protection available for us. So this is something we've talked about and obviously we're aware of, making sure that we're financially sound, we're legally sound. If and there is no, this would happen, but if there was another pandemic or whatever may happen and there was a risk, we would be safeguarded in terms of the Charity Commission, and there are a number of organisations in the UK that would safeguard and protect us as trustees against this. So we wouldn't expect you to take out any insurance or anything else of your own accord or out of your own pocket.
Cheers, thank you.
Amazing. Well, unless there's any last minute final burning questions, and conscious we're a little bit over time, going to wrap up. Just a massive thank you again to Kieran, to Tegan and to Katie for giving up their Monday evening, for speaking to us. Wish you the absolute best of luck with your application. If you've not submitted yet, take the time, read through it. Any final questions, let us know. If you've already submitted, fantastic. You can rest, relax and take a breather for a little bit. We'll be in touch in a couple of weeks with further information. We really look forward to reading your applications, watching or listening to them, and look forward to hopefully seeing many of you very soon, and potentially some of you on our board in the coming months. But thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Sorry, can I ask one quick question just before we
Yeah,
go?
of course.
I just wanted to ask, on these events, are you allowed to network? And if so, like, how can you go about this? Because obviously you're not allowed, you have to be like impartial, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think if it's a digital thing, one of the easiest things people often do, and you'll see loads of people do it, is they'll just post a link to their LinkedIn. One of the things I've got is a link tree. So I just have a link tree and it has like my Twitter account, my LinkedIn, and then it has a few other bits and bobs. So like if I've written any articles or blogs and things like that, and it's just all in one place. So rather than sending 10 messages in a chat and spamming people, I'll just say, here's my link tree, and people can choose if they want to follow me, if they want to connect, whatever they want to do, or they may go, actually, I don't want to connect with this guy, and just ignore it, which they're entitled to do. That can be really useful. When you're in a physical space, you are welcome to. So if you're chatting to someone and you think, okay, it's brilliant, you are able to say, oh, it'd be great to get your LinkedIn and connect and stay in touch. That's fine. What we'd always ask is, though, that kind of being conscious of where you are and what you're there to do. So, for example, if you're at a networking event to help raise funds for the BYC, your priority is to promote the BYC's work and try and speak to potential donors. And then as a secondary to that, you can build connections and relationships. But an event like this, or kind of an online event, more than welcome. Drop your LinkedIn in, email address, wherever it may be you want to promote, and encourage people to connect.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Well, amazing. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening and a good week, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.